Last but not least, Mr. Giampiero Soncini, CEO at IB Marine. The floor is yours.
Can you all hear me and see me? Because I was disconnected. Yeah, great. Okay, because I'm the last one, I'll try to keep my time lower than the 95 minutes that have been allocated.
Very fine, as usual.
So I'll try to be quick. It has been interesting. I followed basically almost 90% of the whole presentation. It has been interesting. I have some comments before I start because I want to be very quick on my presentation. It is a bit sad that it has taken us a virus to finally move into the real digitalization of shipping. I've been in this area for 33 years. And yes, it's true. I've seen a big jump now of interest. But again, it has taken us a virus rather than a common understanding that IT is there for help. Mark O'Neill said something very nice. He said, that the technology enhances human behavior and doesn't replace it. But in shipping, it has had really a very rough life. What we are doing today, what we're proposing today, I was doing it in 1986. The only difference between then and today is that essentially it has become smaller and it has become cheaper. But we were able, or I was able to do in 1986 to drive a ship from remote and to have a ship without a helmsman driven by a computer. And again, the only difference is that it costs definitely much less. Actually, the drop in price in the last 10 years has been absolutely amazing, and it's the best part of the digitalization process. Another thing is that I've been very much impressed by the presentation of Jacob Larsen, and I've been impressed by the fact that shipping is so low tech that at the end of the day, hackers are not very interested about even dealing with us. I don't know if it is a good thing or a bad thing, but definitely it was interesting to hear this comment. So, and what I would like to talk about is that a lot of people talk about digitalization, but they've never really tried it on board. They've never really tried to bring something on board of the ships and see if it works or if it's going to be, done in a proper way. So I'll try to reach my screen, which is very interesting because what am I supposed to show you doesn't appear now on this. So let me try again. Share. Ooh, so let me go here and
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So essentially, what does it really mean, digitalizing? Because a lot of people confuse it and think that simply transposing paperwork on a computer, on Excel spreadsheet, on Word or whatever is digitalization. Of course, it's not, because digitalization means eliminating the need of a human interaction, essentially. So we need to basically extract data and manipulate data directly without having any manual input. So digitalization is not having somebody on the vessel writing down measurements, maybe into an Excel spreadsheet or in any other mean, and then sending them ashore where they are analyzed. This is not the way the system is supposed to be, because if you have manual readings and manual inputs, you can add to the problem, because people may read incorrectly, may write incorrectly, may send it incorrectly, and may not want to do the job because they are already overloaded. So digitalization is when the entire process is digitalized, which means I collect data, I store data, I analyze data entirely automatically, okay? And once I have transmitted my data, once I have recorded my data or collected my data, the analysis is again done automatically. Of course, at the end of the process, there is always the human being, there is always the human interaction. And I repeat the words of Mark O'Neill because I really like them. There will never be, technology enhances human behavior, doesn't replace it. So essentially, this digitalization is there to help us driving the ships better, making less mistakes, saving more money, polluting less, increasing the safety, and having essentially a better life at the end of the day. Why data collecting on board is a must when you want to digitalize a fleet? Because it doesn't make any sense. Shipping exists with ships. It doesn't exist because we have offices. So we have to digitalize the vessels first. And it's sad, very sad, this is a question that I asked Mark this morning, that, shipping, there is a discrepancy between ship owners and shipyards and ship managers, or eventually of the people, let's say, who are then supposed to run the vessels. Lots of vessels that come out from shipyards today are still built the same way as they were built 20 years ago. Digitalization has definitely not gone on board. And one of the things that instead I didn't like about what Mark said, even if of course he was right, is that there will never be standardization. The aviation industry standardized basically every single procedure related to what they were doing. They started 35 years ago, and then they introduced the principle of code sharing, and then they introduced everything that has allowed us to travel before COVID without any issue. And it is sad that we still are not at all in that era. Why collecting data is on board? Well, less mistakes, I said it before, no possibility to forget, it's done automatically, no possibility to manipulate data because you don't want to show the right data that you have on board. You want to show your own data or some data that allows you to do fishy things. You reduce immensely the workload on crews. You can store and collect an enormous amount of data over a long period of time. You cannot ask a member of the crew to register, some numbers every 5 minutes, but you can do it every 5 seconds if you do it digitally. You have unlimited data storage. Well, on paper, you know very well what happens to paper archives. They are forgotten. They're never read. They're read only when there are problems in court. And of course, it allows you to keep the data even when you change ownership of the vessel. And and another thing which is important is that in the past, one of the issues that we had, and this was one of the issues that I had when I started doing this job 30 years ago, is that data transmission was very, very expensive. Today, data transmission is not an issue anymore. Also because when we're talking about digitalization, unless we are talking about video transmission, we really talk about telemetry. And telemetry does not occupy large bandwidth, and it's very cheap. And Inmarsat has created this fleet data option, which is extremely good. In the middle photograph, you see the data logger that we install on board of the ships that use our IB performance solution. It has been designed over a period and perfected over a period of 6 years. It's a piece of hardware. It's a problem that we have today. We have to install the hardware because not all ships are, as I said before, digitalized. But finally, during COVID, we were able to completely insert our software on board of a vessel without installing the data logger and simply connecting to the automation and navigation system because they were the latest state of the art. And can you imagine the simplicity of being able to do it from shore if you basically build the vessel according to the latest standard? Of course, this is not possible with existing ships, but what is is sorry, and I'll skip this one because I've already said it, is that when you have all these instruments, which is everything that you want to connect in order to digitalize the vessel. So you want to have flow meters, torque meters, you want to monitor the scrubbers, you must have your plant maintenance and your condition-based maintenance, your energy system, the GPS, speed log, the weather situation, the actives for the route planning, etc. Whenever you have this, sometimes even on new vessels, we go on board and we find out that yes, they have a flow meter, but it doesn't have a digital output, sorry. It only has a reader. So essentially, there is no way you can take data out of it. Or you go on a ship and you want to, monitor the fuel consumption, but they didn't install a torque meter. And that is the weakness and the pitfalls, because even when you want to install a flow meter, like the example that you have here, well, if there is no digital output, the only thing that you can do is to send somebody to look at that round little thing of the little screen and write it down. But if you have it, you can collect data every second, every 5 seconds. You can analyze it and can do whatever you want with it. And of course, the difference is always the same one. It's pricing. We're doing some ships for a ship owner in Hong Kong, and the automation company has asked $12,000 in order to basically open the channel for us to be able to read their data. This is another very big issue that we have when we go on board, and it's only with the automation plant, because navigation system, they all operate on the same standard, NEMEA 0183 or Mini NEMEA or whatever, but essentially it's very easy to connect today with a VDR, with an AIS, or with an ACTIS. When it goes into the automation plant, it's completely different. First of all, you have different communication methods. They can be Modbus, they can be OPC or whatever, they can be ITC, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, they are all fairly well known. But the problem is that all the channels, they are difficult to interpret unless you're given a conversion table from the manufacturer. And sometimes they're even encrypted. And that does not really allow for digitalization, because then there is an extortionate price, which is sometimes asked by the automation companies in order for things to happen. So, and when you want to digitalize your fleet, there is a lot of misconception. I spoke for the first time about a fleet operation control center in 2007, and people looked at me as if I was crazy. And 2013, I was booed at the Cyprus Maritime Conference because I spoke about the fact that we needed to go towards a crewless vessel. I selected the wrong conference. I admitted it was about manpower and crewing. So I wasn't very clever in talking about going to 5 people or 3 people on board. But in reality, a lot of people, they think that digitalization is installing another computer, but you need to understand what you want to do with the enormous amount of data which are collected. Even as of today, a lot of ships have been using a PMS on board for the last 10 or 15 years, but almost none of them does any analysis or knows what to derive out of it. One advantage of digitalization is that it bypasses the horrible pitfalls that plant maintenance systems had, and that was creating the databases. So inserting data first in order to be able to take out data after. With digitalization, you certainly can move very quickly into condition-based maintenance, where you basically take a lot of readings and you analyze the trends on temperatures or pressures or vibration and so on. But still, there is a plan to be made about understanding what you want to achieve. And it is more complex and more difficult than installing a plant maintenance system on board, even if it saves the possibility of creating a database. It is definitely a leap towards the future. When I started the process of talking about a fleet operation control center, yes, people said, "Oh, it's very nice, but it will never happen." It's going to happen. It's happening at the speed of sound now because of COVID, and it will speed up even more if COVID or any problem related with the aviation will continue to to exist. I've taken only 4 flights in the past 4 months, compared to an average of about 40 or 50 in the previous years. And it is not as nice as before. It is not as easy as before. I've gone to fly to Cyprus. I've gone from having about 20 options a day to 2 in this current period. I have 2 options only to fly from my part of Italy to Cyprus or vice versa. So that will bring crew changes into an enormous amount of additional issues, and it will facilitate the digitalization process. And this is the way the future is going to be. Fleet remote control monitoring. I'm happy that I saw this happening. I was so convinced about it. I spoke about it. It had become a mantra, and I was really very pleasantly surprised when I saw Costa Carnival with an amazing center in Hamburg, OSM with an amazing center in Singapore, and of course Colombia in Cyprus, and so on. And the future is entirely here. People operating, controlling every aspect of the vessel, everything analyzed, machine learning, business intelligence, software algorithm will give the operators of the ships indication of what is happening. It's going to be managed by exceptions. We will not have to control every single parameter that works. We will have to control only what is outside the trend, outside the thresholds, above the average. We will monitor by exception all our vessels. And I finished so that we can all go and take a coffee.
Thank you very much, Giampiero.
Most welcome, Natalie.
I was listening to you, of course, always very inspiring. Why do you think that aviation is so far ahead of us in terms of digitalization? Is it a matter of standardization and protocols and I don't know?
Planes have the horrible habit of falling from the sky if something goes wrong. So I suppose that was the issue. A ship, you break an engine, and the chances that you remain afloat are still high. I don't know. I've spoken. I also teamed up with the Lufthansa industry, like Colombia did, and we've been talking for the last year on and exchanging opinions and ideas about everything. I think it was due. Aviation invented condition-based maintenance, invented non-destructive testing, because in the early days of aviation, when they started with the Corsair and with the first airplanes, they were breaking in two and exploding midair. So in the period 1956 to 1960, there were a lot of accidents where the airplanes were breaking apart. And I think it was due to that. They congregated all the efforts. Of course, they were also facilitated by the fact that the airline manufacturers, they were 10 after the Second World War, and they are basically essentially 4 manufacturers today. And that has simplified it. We will have to go. I want to see this happening. COVID has closed a lot of shipyards, really a lot. I suppose that in the next 10 years, once we will see the consolidation of shipyards in the world, we will see a lot of consolidation even of the procedures and the standardization. Today, everybody is writing manuals for the equipment that they sell in a completely different way, one from the other. In the aviation, since 35 years, manuals for documentation have been written by every single manufacturer exactly the same way. And as they write them now on a digital format, you can imagine how easy it is to import all the data, inside any computer.
Thank you so much. A big thank you to all our speakers for giving us their insights. I'm sure we all go away with a lot to think about and a lot of challenging thoughts for us, as a lot of this kind of breaks into the ways that we might have been used to.